how a CEO's shocking decision to hand my project to an intern transformed everything. Rachel stared at the presentation slides flickering on her office monitor. This was it, the culmination of countless nights spent poring over data and crafting the perfect narrative. Just as her excitement bubbled over, the door swung open. The CEO's voice echoed across the room, and with it came a relentless wave of dread. "We've decided to hand the campaign over to Jake." The words struck like a blade, slicing through her carefully constructed world. The way the room buzzed with excitement over the fresh-faced intern sent a jolt of resentment through her veins. Jake was a kid, barely out of college, and yes, he smiled brightly, but did he even understand the market? Did he comprehend the grueling hours Rachel had sacrificed for this very opportunity? Fingers trembling against her keyboard, Rachel wrestled with disbelief and anger. It felt as if someone had yanked the rug from beneath her, leaving her to stumble into an abyss of uncertainty. How could they overlook her years of experience, her dedication? The relentless grip of injustice burned alongside an internal dialogue that questioned her worth in a place hell-bent on familial connections. She couldn't afford to lose the chance that had been years in the making, her shooter-takes-all marketing campaign. Rachel's mind raced through a litany of fears. She envisioned herself fading into obscurity, a forgotten whisper in an office addicted to youth and privilege. Before she could spiral further down the rabbit hole, a voice broke through, cutting through the chaos. Her mentor, Mark. Their shared history had once felt like a safety net, but now it loomed as a reminder of what she might never reclaim. "Stay authentic, Rachel," he had once told her. But what was authentic anymore? How could integrity thrive in a system that touted connections and charm over hard work? Rachel glanced at Jake, who was already animatedly chatting with a couple of colleagues. The sheer confidence he exuded was a stark reminder of her mounting insecurity. Pain clawed at her chest as whispers of doubt echoed. Was he truly more deserving? Were her ideas not fresh enough, lacking that elusive perspective everyone seemed to be gushing about? Just as she was about to navigate this whirlwind of emotion, she felt the weight of expectation bearing down on her like a thick fog. "I can't sit idly by," Rachel muttered under her breath, adrenaline surging. Anxiety settled in her stomach, but determination eclipsed it. Watching Jake too closely felt like a betrayal to herself, yet the thought of him reaping rewards from her toil ignited something fierce within. As days passed, her routine evolved. Instead of outright sabotaging Jake, Rachel's scrutiny morphed into insight. She found herself surprisingly engaged, unraveling a unique collaboration with him, as their shared passion for market innovation sparked spontaneous brainstorming sessions. But with every laugh they shared, a creeping fear clawed back. Would he overshadow her when it really mattered? On the day of the presentation, the stakes became painfully clear. The lights dimmed, the air thick with anticipation. Rachel's heart raced as doubts turned into a riptide dragging her down. The moment, shrouded in uncertainty, held her at a precipice. Would her narrative of resilience shine through, or would she be lost to a system built on privilege? With her breath caught in her throat, she braced for the impending storm, desperate for her voice to resonate amid the chaos. The lights of the conference room pulsed like strobe lights in Rachel's mind, illuminating her rising anxiety. As Jake began presenting, his voice rang out with an eagerness that tugged on the heartstrings of the audience. Rachel's palms were clammy as the sound of his words clashed with her thoughts, drowning out her carefully constructed narrative. She felt like a ghost haunting her own story, invisible and unheard. But then, a small ember of determination sparked within her. Instead of retreating into despair, she sat taller, refusing to allow doubt to consume her. In her mind, the tension shifted. This was no longer just about Jake. This was about reclaiming her space in a narrative that was still being written. As Jake unveiled slide after slide, Rachel's sharp analytical mind couldn't help but assess. He highlighted sleek graphics and trendy statistics, But there was a hollowness to it all. The raw passion that initially fueled her project was missing. With every animated quip that elicited laughter, Rachel found herself reworking her plan, weaving in insights and emotions that she had so painstakingly developed. What Jake presented was surface level. What she carried within was depth. When the applause rang out at the end of Jake's presentation, Rachel felt an unexpected surge of adrenaline. She had to seize this moment, not to undermine Jake, but to advocate for the collaborative vision they had cultivated. She stood up, heart pounding, stepping into her role as both participant and leader. "Great job, Jake," she started, her voice steady despite the whirlwind inside her. "But I believe we can take this even further." As she spoke, her confidence swelled. Rachel moved through the points she envisioned, incorporating Jake's findings while threading in her strategic insights. She spoke of the emotional connection the brand could forge with consumers, painting a vivid picture that shifted the room's energy. The room came alive again, buzzing with excitement. A few of her colleagues nodded along, their interest sparked anew. Rachel could see the wheels turning in their heads, the shift from skepticism to curiosity taking root. As she finished, a wave of pride washed over her. It felt exhilarating to stand at the front and steer the dialogue back to a place where her hard work shone. But even amidst the nods of approval and the energy in the air, Rachel felt an unsettling pang. Had she stepped out of the shadows only to overshadow Jake? What was it about him that made her so uneasy? Vulnerabilities loomed, large in her mind. They'd spent remarkable hours brainstorming together, yet she hadn't spared much thought for his response to her ideas. After the presentation, Rachel sought Jake out before he could escape amidst the crowd. He stood, arms crossed, looking contemplative. The moment felt charged, and a whirlwind of emotions swirled between them. This was an opportunity, not just to continue the conversation, but to clarify her stance and reinforce their partnership. As she approached him, the weight of her previous doubts coursed through her mind. "Hey, can we talk?" she asked. Jake turned, and Rachel caught his eye, searching for understanding. "Sure," he replied, tentatively, and at that moment, Rachel knew their exchange could redefine both of them. She had a choice: to validate her existence by standing against him, or to pave a path forward together. "Did you think I was trying to steal your thunder?" she asked directly, willing to confront the tension that had lingered since the decision was made. His brow furrowed slightly, then relaxed. "I wasn't sure, honestly. I didn't want the moment to turn into a competition between us." The air crackled with unspoken possibilities. They each held a piece of this project, but now it was time to forge a connection that would redefine success. Rachel felt the tight grip of uncertainty begin to loosen. She had turned a potential rivalry into a foundation for collaboration. But the question arose: how could they balance their strengths while confronting the competitive environment surrounding them? As they delved deeper into conversation, Rachel realized that this development could be more than a professional alliance. It could become her catalyst for change in the company. But what would they need to sacrifice in order to elevate their collective vision? The deeper they explored their partnership, the clearer it became that both of them were on a journey, one that would test their foundational beliefs and uncover hidden facets within themselves. And with that thought echoed in the hollow of her heart, she wondered, was she prepared to face the true nature of competition and adaptability? Rachel sat down with Jake at a nearby cafe, the atmosphere buzzing with conversations and the aroma of strong coffee enveloping them. The initial tension still lingered, but now crackled with potential. It was a pivotal moment, not just for their project, but for Rachel's evolving view of herself within the company. As they delved deeper into their discussion, Rachel listened intently while Jake spoke about his vision for the project, the points he had wanted to hit but hadn't had time for during the presentation. This wasn't a competition, it was a collaborative exploration. With each word from him, Rachel gained insight, opportunity growing like a vivid blossom cutting through the cold soil of her insecurities. "It's like we each have pieces of a puzzle," Jake said, eyeing the table between them as if envisioning the project spread out before him. Rachel nodded, her heart quickening as she envisioned how they could merge their ideas. Still, an undercurrent of doubt lingered. Was she really up to the challenge? What if we pushed too hard to integrate everything? It could dilute what makes our individual visions special, she mused, holding back a note of vulnerability. Jake leaned back, a contemplative look crossing his face. But what if those individual visions are what create the uniqueness of our project? We wouldn't be limiting ourselves, we'd be expanding into something greater. This was more than a brainstorming session. Rachel felt as if she were unearthing hidden layers of her potential. She hadn't thought of her contributions as merely supplementary, but as essential. The realization was invigorating. While she had been caught up in a spiral of comparison and fear, Jake had offered her a pathway to empowerment. Pushing through her own mental blockage, Rachel seized the moment. We should schedule regular brainstorming sessions moving forward, not just to merge our components, but to challenge and elevate each other's ideas. The words flowed with newfound assertiveness, as though she were fabricating a shield against her inner critic. Jake's face lit up with enthusiasm. Absolutely, it's critical we maintain that dialogue. Let's have one every week, build a habit out of it. The collaboration radiated in bright lines. A thought struck Rachel as she processed her deeper commitment to this shared endeavor. Also, she added, let's invite a few others to present their thoughts too. The more perspectives, the richer the discussion. The notion sent a ripple of excitement through her. This was about more than just her and Jake. It was about fostering an inclusive environment that would cultivate creativity across the board. But as the conversation flowed seamlessly, Rachel confronted a knowing anxiety. What if they were met with disbelief from their colleagues? What if others viewed this new partnership as a threat to the established hierarchy? She grappled with this tension inwardly, knowing she would have to mentally prepare herself and Jake for potential resistance. At that point, the barista set 2 steaming cups of coffee down, the rich steam swirling like possibilities shrouded in doubt and hope. As she took her first sip, the warmth brought a moment of clarity. She had a foundation built not just on collaboration with Jake, but also on forging her own voice alongside him. But beneath that excitement lay a deeper inquiry. Could she truly embrace boldness? Would she be secure enough in her worth to inspire collaboration rather than appease competition? This was a personal evolution, swirling with questions of confidence, self-identity, and ambition. Just as she was about to share her thoughts, Jake leaned in. So, about those sessions, I think they could help us rise to the level that others expect from us, but we need to manage perceptions too. Rachel's pulse quickened. The stakes were higher than she had anticipated, and a moment of vulnerability threatened her resolve. How would they navigate not just the creative challenges of their project, but the political landscape of their workplace? That simmering anxiety ignited a determination within her. Next week would be an experiment, an opportunity to not only refine their project, but to fortify her own narrative. What began as a collaboration could transform into a movement if she seized the moment. And as they continued their discussion, one question loomed large in her mind. How would they confront the expected resistance? And, more importantly, how might Rachel harness her inner strength to redefine success in front of their colleagues? The following week arrived with a tension that hummed through Rachel's entire being. As she prepared for the first joint brainstorming session with Jake and a handful of their colleagues, the gravity of her decision to include others weighed on her. What if her idea backfired? What if they dismissed her initiative as naive? She spent the last few nights drafting an agenda, meticulously planning how to facilitate discussions and channel their creativity into a defined purpose. Yet beneath her preparations lay an undercurrent of self-doubt that threatened to unravel her resolve. Arriving at the sleek conference room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bustling city, Rachel felt a wave of apprehension wash over her. She could hear Jake's comforting voice in her mind, reminding her of their shared vision, but even that could only go so far against the clamoring insecurities that reared their heads. Could she genuinely implement a collaborative atmosphere? Would her colleagues see her as a leader in this initiative, or simply as Jake's shadow? As the participants trickled in, Rachel forced herself to greet each one warmly, trying to mask the whirlwind of thoughts churning inside her. It didn't take long for the cacophony of voices and laughter to alter the room's energy, sparking a semblance of excitement.
Still, Rachel felt a bead of sweat gather at her temple as she glanced at her notes, the flurry of pages determined to anchor her in the moment. "Thanks everyone for being here," she began, her voice surprisingly steady. "Jake and I are really looking forward to collaborating on this project. It's an opportunity for all of us to bring our unique perspectives together." The smiles across the table were encouraging, and as Rachel launched into the agenda, her enthusiasm began to blossom. She encouraged open dialogue, cultivating an atmosphere where everyone felt their input mattered. Yet beyond the surface, she was hyper-aware of any moment that could be perceived as hesitation. Was she making eye contact? Did her tone suggest confidence? Each interaction felt like a test. As discussions unfolded, she felt threads of connectivity weaving through the group. Ideas flowed, some challenging her initial thoughts, and yet, with every passing moment, she became more adept at pivoting conversation to build on contributions rather than defend her own agenda. One colleague's suggestions sparked another's, spiraling into a tide of creativity she had desperately hoped to foster. Yet amidst those moments of exhilaration lurked a reality she couldn't ignore. Some
faces remained skeptical. Two colleagues, known for their sharp critiques, exchanged glances that fueled her anxiety. Were they just being stoic, or did they doubt her leadership capabilities? Rachel, unwilling to succumb to instinctive fear, decided to confront the tension head-on. "I know this might feel unorthodox, and it may take some adjustment," she addressed the skeptical duo, her heart racing. "I welcome any thoughts you have on how we can improve this process moving forward." The unexpected pause that felt like a weight on her chest. She could almost hear the ticking clock, yet she held her breath, eyes steady. Any shift in their expressions felt monumental, a decisive moment, reminding her that vulnerability could be a strength. After what seemed an eternity, one of them leaned forward, a reluctant smile hinting on the corners of her mouth. "It's refreshing to hear you open the floor for that kind of feedback. I appreciate the effort." Encouraged, Rachel felt the knot inside her loosen slightly. Perhaps she could steer this in a direction that not only affirmed her own capabilities, but also disarmed the skepticism that hung heavy in the air. As the session continued, Rachel surprised herself, embracing her role as a facilitator. She encouraged divergent thoughts, reigniting the enthusiasm Jake had stoked just days prior. What began as a challenge soon morphed into a collective endeavor. As her colleagues brainstormed wildly off each other's ideas, Rachel realized she was not merely a participant, she was an architect of possibilities, building a framework for collaboration that empowered everyone involved, not just herself. By the end of the session, the once static room pulsed with energy, laughter echoed off the walls, and new ideas flooded in. But as the buzz began to fade and the colleagues filtered out, she caught herself reflecting on that lingering skepticism. Was the battle truly won, or was it merely an illusion masked by temporary enthusiasm? And what would they think tomorrow as they returned to the harsher lights of the office? As she gathered her belongings, she caught a glimpse of Jake, who caught her eye with an encouraging nod. The trust between them felt palpable, yet a question danced in the back of Rachel's mind. How would her evolving leadership style hold under the weight of wider scrutiny? Starting tomorrow, the real challenge would begin. And with that thought, a chilling realization dawned upon her. One small revelation about her project could tip this momentum into disaster. How would she maintain the courage to stand by her decisions when doubt loomed ever larger? The next day arrived with the sharpened edges of stakes. Rachel couldn't escape the feeling that the atmosphere had shifted. After the high of the previous day's brainstorming session, apprehension nested within her, whispering doubts while she walked through the sterile corridors of the office. Each footstep echoed with the weight of her responsibilities. She felt the intensity of a tightrope walker, unsure of whether her next movement would bring her soaring or crashing down into ridicule. Her mind churned with thoughts of the meeting. What if someone found a fault she had overlooked? What if the initial excitement faded into ambivalence? The creeping doubt encroached mercilessly, feeding her insecurities about her qualifications and her very right to lead. Yet beneath the doubts lurked the thrill of possibility. the chance to embrace her vision. As she reached her desk, Rachel found a message from Jake. He wanted to discuss the project updates over coffee. The invitation carried both warmth and unease. Would their discussion bolster her confidence, or would it peel back layers of her ambition, exposing her vulnerabilities? Rachel took a deep breath, trying to clear her mind, just as she'd learned during their previous sessions. Jake arrived promptly, the scent of freshly brewed coffee swirling around him. "I heard things went well yesterday," he said, his smile genuine. But Rachel couldn't fully absorb the compliment. A part of her hungered for validation, yet feared the consequences of any scrutiny. "Thanks, but I still feel I must prove that it wasn't just a fluke," she admitted, her voice barely louder than a whisper. The words tasted bitter on her tongue. Jake leaned forward slightly, his expression thoughtful. "You did a great job fostering collaboration. That's a skill not everyone possesses. You've built a foundation. Now it's about maintaining that momentum." For a moment, Rachel felt buoyed, but a niggling insecurity remained. What would happen when reality demanded results? Later that day, Rachel sat down with her laptop, determined to meticulously document the insights collected during the brainstorming session. She structured them within a format that could be presented to upper management, yet clarity darted just out of reach. As she typed, her heart raced with the awareness of potential pitfalls. How would she present this to the executives, who had a reputation for sharp judgment? On the cusp of her first draft's completion, she felt a surge of apprehension. Was she preparing to defend a shaky foundation? After asking herself that question for the third time, she pushed the laptop aside, seeing only imperfections where she craved confidence. That was her fear, a persistent specter lurking behind her determination. In that moment, Rachel sensed an internal shift. Instead of retreating into doubt, she recalled her decision to invite feedback during the last session. Maybe it was time to open the floor again, but this time it might be more personal. She resolved to reach out to her skeptical colleagues, the ones whose silence had plagued her after the meeting. They held the power to validate or challenge her vision, and knowing that may just fortify her stance. With an unexpected burst of resolve, she drafted an email to the duo. It wasn't just a plea for ideas, it was an invitation for them to engage in the journey she had begun, to hold her accountable and share in the responsibility of her project. As she hit send, a rush of adrenaline flowed through her. The action felt right, confronting her doubts head-on, inviting scrutiny rather than shying away. But the exhilaration blended with anxiety. What would happen if they responded with scorn, reinforcing her fears instead? The internal battle raged as she decided to pause and breathe through the discomfort. Engaging in this honest exchange could either affirm her leadership or expose her shortcomings, but the act itself was liberating. With this single decision, Rachel began to see her doubts not just as barriers, but as necessary parts of growth. Yet, as she sat with her thoughts, a new fear emerged. Had she made herself vulnerable by opening up her process? What if it backfired? The prospects were both exhilarating and terrifying, and as she stood at this new crossroads, Rachel was left questioning, could she maintain this newfound courage when facing the inevitable opposition? As the echoes of her resolve faded into the buzz of the office, Rachel's heart raced. The inevitable confrontations loomed in the distance, promising both growth and struggle. Would she rise to the challenge, or would fear catch up to her before she could truly grow? The next morning, Rachel felt an urgency coursing through her veins, electrified by the anticipation of her colleagues' responses. The email she had sent lingered in her mind, an unrelenting ticking clock, as she wished for engagement but feared the consequences of scrutiny. The sterile office felt more like a waiting room, each unread message amplifying her anxiety. As she settled at her desk, she engaged in a ritual that had become the cornerstone of her mornings, quieting her mind through focused breathing. Yet today, the practice felt futile against the backdrop of her racing thoughts. What if the feedback favored her skeptics? What if their critiques solidified her unworthiness to lead this project?
Moments passed like hours, until finally her screen lit up with a notification, a reply. With a mixture of dread and excitement, Rachel opened the message. To her surprise, the feedback was constructive and insightful. Claire, one of the skeptics, had provided several thoughtful suggestions, urging her to strengthen a few key elements in her project proposal. Rather than tearing her down, it felt as if Claire had extended an olive branch, inviting Rachel to improve. Rachel leaned back in her chair, the weight of her apprehensions slightly lifted. Yet, as encouragement bubbled within her, another thought surfaced. How could she lead effectively if her confidence still wobbled? Would integrating these critiques mark a step toward personal growth, or set her further down the path of self-doubt? Determined not to yield to fear, she began formulating a strategy. Addressing the feedback would not only enhance her project, but also build a partnership with Claire. She drafted a response, not merely thanking Claire, but proposing a meeting to discuss the suggestions in detail. Together, they could transform the project in a way that embraced their collective strengths. Multitasking helped channel her jitters. While she awaited Claire's reply, Rachel dove into reworking her project proposal. Each adjustment felt like a step toward fortifying her leadership. Just as she began seeing her ideas in a clearer light, another email flashed across her screen, this time from Ethan, another colleague whose opinion had been notably absent in prior discussions. Ethan's reply echoed the constructive tone of Claire's. He expressed appreciation for the direction Rachel was taking while offering insights based on his own expertise. The shift in feedback sparked a realization. Challenging herself to invite critique had unlocked a cooperative spirit she had longed for. Giddy with newfound momentum, Rachel felt her heart swell with determination. But lurking beneath the surface was the shadow of her inner critic. What if this collaborative approach faltered? What if she slipped back into isolation, losing the support she was now cultivating? With courage fueling her next move, Rachel decided to convene a meeting with her team. It was an opportunity to collectively assess feedback, brainstorm fresh ideas, and consolidate their input into a unified vision. She envisioned a dynamic exchange, a space where they could explore vulnerabilities together. Each participant could bring their strengths to the table, and Rachel's role would transform from fear-filled leader to guiding facilitator, encouraging each voice to reverberate in the shared workspace. As she prepared the agenda for the meeting, her mind raced with potential outcomes. Would this open dialogue fortify her standing, or would it reveal cracks in her authority? Each possibility echoed through her thoughts, raising a bead of sweat along her brow. Yet, there was a subtle exhilaration in embracing the uncertainty. If she could foster collaboration, perhaps she could redefine what leadership meant for her. As the clock ticked closer to the meeting, excitement stirred within Rachel, mixed with a slightly unsettled feeling. The moment felt pivotal, a chance to redefine her approach, but also to risk exposure. She scribbled down her thoughts, each word a commitment to transparency and cooperation. The door to her meeting room stood ajar, and as colleagues began to fill the seats, Rachel could practically feel the energy in the room shift. This was the moment she had been waiting for, where she would confront the apprehension, revealing not only her vision, but her own journey. What would surface in the collective dialogue? Would the team's engagement fuel her confidence, or would it serve as a reminder of her frailties? Rachel inhaled, feeling as though she stood on a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown, where growth awaited just beyond her fears. But little did she know, an unexpected challenge loomed, one that would threaten the cohesion she had just begun to build. Rachel settled into her chair, taking a deep breath as the meeting room filled with familiar faces, each carrying their own expectations. She felt a mixture of trepidation and anticipation. Would her plan to facilitate an open dialogue succeed, or would her colleagues see through her mask of confidence? The energy in the room felt tangible, a mix of curiosity and skepticism, and Rachel was acutely aware of the weight of their gazes on her. "Thank you all for joining me today," she began, her voice steady yet laced with the vulnerability gnawing at her inside. "I wanted to discuss the feedback we received on the project proposal and explore how we can improve it together." As she spoke, Rachel noticed Claire nodding appreciatively, a small gesture that bolstered her courage. Then Ethan chimed in.
I think the suggestions are on point. Collaborating might actually enhance the outcome. The affirmations flowed initially, setting an encouraging tone, igniting a spark of hope within her that the tide was truly turning. The first part of the meeting unfolded seamlessly, the team exchanging ideas and consensus building. Rachel guided the dialogue with a calm demeanor, purposefully allowing each person to express their opinions. She felt the emerging synergy resonate through the room, a collective creativity that felt exhilarating. Yet as the conversation delved deeper, Rachel became increasingly aware of diverging opinions. A loud voice cut through the agreement, challenging not only the project but her leadership too. While I appreciate the input, we need to be realistic. This idea might not be feasible. A colleague named Mark interjected, crossing his arms defensively, his tone sharper than she anticipated. The tremor in her heart returned, and for a fleeting moment she questioned her authority. She could feel the flickering flame of doubt. Was she really cut out for this leadership role? Yet, recalling her commitment to transparency, she chose not to shy away. I appreciate your perspective, Mark. Can you elaborate on the challenges you foresee? His response launched another round of critique, not just on the project, but on Rachel's leadership approach altogether. The tension in the room thickened, each piercing comment jarring her sense of stability. Instead of crumbling, each jab became fuel for her resolve. This was her moment to illuminate her own capacity for strength, to embrace this struggle rather than retreat behind her insecurities. Let's pivot this into a constructive discussion. I'd like to hear everyone's ideas about the challenges we face and what adjustments we can make, she suggested, feeling a flicker of assertiveness break through. The room quieted, the air electric with anticipation. Rachel was acutely aware that she stood at a crucial intersection of her career. This was not just a test of her project, but a trial of her executive identity. As additional voices arose, she began to weave a new narrative, one that embraced their criticisms as a cornerstone of innovation. Each suggestion now felt less like an assault and more like a stepping stone toward her evolution as a leader. Rachel noticed a subtle shift. Even Mark had begun contributing actionable solutions rather than just criticisms. Despite this, Rachel couldn't shake the creeping sensation that a deeper issue lurked beneath the surface. It wasn't merely the project that felt shaky, it was her own standing. The words unworthy and insecure ricocheted in her mind, a reminder of the fragile nature of her ascent. As the meeting drew to a close, Rachel felt both invigorated and unnerved. They had more work ahead, but collaboration had taken root, and she had begun to carve out her authority through vulnerability and strength. Yet, beyond the relief was a chilling awareness that this sense of progress could be threatened at any moment. The final moments of the gathering were interrupted by Ethan leaning forward. I think we're onto something here, but we should really involve fresh perspectives too. What about opening this project up for insights from our interns? A murmur of appraise swept across the room, but Rachel's pulse quickened. The sinking question followed. Why hand off this crucial project to interns? Instinctively, she braced for the unease of relinquishing control, knowing it might be pivotal yet mysterious. Would this spark creativity or undermine her as a leader? As she gathered her things, Rachel realized she was on the cusp of yet another challenge, one that could radically redefine her identity and trajectory. What decisions lay ahead, and how would they shape the project and her as a leader? The unsettling unknown loomed ahead like a storm cloud, and Rachel was left with a weary yet exhilarated heart, ready to face the next chapter in her professional odyssey. Rachel hurried back to her desk, her thoughts racing between the implications of inviting interns into her project and the simmering doubts that lingered from the meeting. Would she truly be able to let go of some control? The notion was both exhilarating and terrifying. Staring at her computer screen, she felt the weight of the question suffocate her. Was she ready to embrace this new strategy? She had always prided herself on being hands-on, but the vision presented by Ethan flickered in her mind, igniting her curiosity about the fresh perspectives that interns could offer. Logical reasoning battled against her instincts. Would involving less experienced team members dilute her efforts or breathe new life into the project? Determined to confront her unease head-on, Rachel opened a document to jot down her thoughts.
Collaborative innovation, she wrote, the words feeling foreign yet promising. Embracing diversity in ideas could not only foster creativity, but also showcase her adaptability, essential traits for a leader. As she typed, a dawning realization took shape. Her career wasn't just about maintaining authority, but about cultivating a culture of shared ownership. The tension around control burrowed deeper within her, but with it came a sense of empowerment. Every leader faced challenges that tested their resolve. This was hers. Steeling herself, Rachel decided to write an email to Ethan and the team proposing the inclusion of interns. The decision marked a subtle shift in her narrative. No longer merely reliant on her experience, she was stepping into a realm of collective exploration. As the email left her outbox, a flicker of anxiety twisted in her stomach. The decision felt monumental, yet it was simply a step in an expansive journey. Would the team
see her as a visionary, or would they perceive her as insecure, leaning on the inexperienced? She needed to prepare for both outcomes. Later that week, Rachel organized a meeting specifically with the interns. Standing at the front of the room, she saw their youthful enthusiasm sparking an almost contagious energy. They presented with fresh ideas, unrefined, yet imbued with a raw creativity that reminded Rachel of her own entry into the professional world. "Today's session is about collaboration," she announced, leaning into her vulnerability. "I'd like to explore how your insights can shape our project. Any thoughts?" As they began discussing their perspectives, Rachel realized that her initial fears of incompetence among the interns were unfounded. They posed questions she had never considered, challenging her assumptions in ways that prompted her to think differently about the project. For the first time, she felt the thrill of innovation, an interplay of thoughts that invigorated her spirit. However, with each passing moment, she couldn't shake the unease that hung in the air. Mark's critical voice echoed in the depths of her mind, the skepticism he had so vocally expressed still reverberating in her consciousness. Would your leadership be deemed effective when leaning on these younger voices? She imagined him asking over and over. That anxiety clawed at her confidence. Determined to quell the inner storm, Rachel maintained focus on the possibility swirling in the room. By inviting young minds to the forefront, she was redefining not just her project, but also her role as a leader. She noted how she shifted from being an authoritarian figure to a facilitator of creativity and dialogue. Yet, as ideas proliferated, Rachel developed a new concern, a fear of losing the project's core vision amid the flood of suggestions. How could she maintain clarity while encouraging innovation? Would she be able to synthesize their insights without veering into chaotic ambiguity? As the meeting closed, Rachel left feeling invigorated but nonetheless anxious. The true test was just beginning. With a blend of optimism and trepidation, she was prepared to navigate this evolving terrain of leadership. Yet she understood that the uneasiness of uncertainty would always be a part of her professional growth. As the door closed behind her, she felt the throbbing weight of responsibility as the leader she aspired to be. The path ahead would be steeper than she imagined, and she knew she had to confront the internal conflicts that threatened her vision. The moment loomed when she would have to boldly advocate not just for the project's needs, but for her own emerging identity as a leader. What decisions would she make in the face of internal chaos, and how would the unfolding insights from the interns reshape her vision? The answers simmered in the air, demanding to be unveiled in the next chapter of her journey. Rachel spent the following days in a whirl of activity. The initial spark from the interns' vibrant ideas ignited an ambitious drive to integrate their contributions into her. Yet the exhilaration of this new collective energy was accompanied by a gnawing anxiety. She felt thrust into uncharted territory, where her traditional leadership style was up for scrutiny. Each morning she arrived early, reviewing the notes from the previous intern meeting, trying to envision the project's direction. She wanted to harness their fresh perspectives without losing sight of the project's foundational goals. Conceptualizing a cohesive strategy became an urgent priority, layering Rachel's existing worries with choices about what to keep, change, or discard. In a moment of introspection, she found herself revisiting her high school debating days, recalling the thrill of defending her ideas against opposing views. That competitive spirit had once propelled her to success, but this felt different. It was about nurturing voices rather than overpowering them. It forced her to confront her ingrained habit of monopolizing discussions, to question whether she could truly step back and empower those less experienced. In her heart, Rachel knew she was at a turning point, not just for the project, but for her professional identity. Each decision she made echoed in her mind, constructing a path toward a new kind of leadership that felt both unfamiliar and daunting. She needed to explore this fluid approach further, but uncertainty lingered like a shadow, whispering doubts about her efficacy. On Friday, she gathered the team, this time not to lead, but to facilitate a brainstorming session that would celebrate their collective input. As Rachel encouraged back-and-forth exchanges, she was surprised to see marked progress. Discussions surged, bouncing ideas like a lively game of catch. However, a stray comment from Mark, who had been quiet during the meeting, hung heavy in the air like a storm cloud. "I hope we don't lose structure in all these ideas." His words snaked around her chest, tightening as she fought to maintain her composure. Was she really sacrificing the solidity of her vision for this chaos? It didn't take long for her to realize the comment struck at her core. The urge to defend her strategy clashed with her desire to allow freedom of thought. She wanted to transcend mere organizational structure while still providing guidance. "I appreciate that concern, Mark," she said, her voice steady yet laced with vulnerability. "Let's ensure we balance innovation with our established goals." In that moment, Rachel felt a rush of clarity, as if veils had been lifted. She understood that maintaining clarity in her leadership did not require control over every narrative. Instead, it was about building a sturdy framework around which diverse ideas could coalesce. Yet a fleeting apprehension flitted through her mind. Could she keep all this in equilibrium, and was her growing confidence sufficient to stave off the looming chaos? As the weeks unfolded and the project developed, Rachel found herself increasingly immersed in this redirecting adventure. Energized, she engaged with the interns regularly, building rapport, but still felt an undercurrent of trepidation. What if their ideation veered too far from her original plan? Doubt lingered. But resilience was building too. Rachel concocted a notion, weekly strategy sessions, where she, the interns, and other core team members could harmonize their ideas, refine the direction toward a joint vision. It felt right, transformative even, yet the unknown felt daunting. Each plan forged ahead with promising potential, but it could just as easily dissolve into disarray. As the day approached for the first strategy session, Rachel wrestled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Would this experimental approach bear fruit, or would she find herself entangled in complications too complex to navigate? The clock ticked, the moment of truth looming ahead, as she prepared herself for whatever outcome awaited. How would this new strategy shift her leadership style, and what concealed challenges lurked beneath the surface? The collective sigh of 1,000 unspoken fears filled the air, urging her to confront those lurking uncertainties head-on. The forthcoming week would unveil whether she could truly lead a project defined not solely by her vision, but by a symphony of voices harmonizing towards a shared goal. As Rachel entered the conference room for the first strategy session, the energy pulsing through her felt both electric and daunting. Each team member settled into their chairs, their expressions a mix of eagerness and apprehension, mirroring the anticipation fluttering in Rachel's own chest. She was in uncharted territory, leading a collaborative effort that embraced diverse ideas while maintaining structure. "Thanks for being here," Rachel began, her voice steady but conscious of the vulnerability bubbling beneath the surface. "Today, we're going to create a space where we can all contribute to shaping our project. I value each of your insights, and I'm eager to find where our ideas intersect." As she introduced the session's agenda, Rachel noticed a few colleagues exchanging glances, a sign of the lingering skepticism she had encountered previously. But instead of narrowing into her shell, she drew on the strength she had cultivated through weeks of collaboration.
This was her moment to pave a path marked by openness rather than insecurity. The first few minutes swirled with energy as ideas ricocheted around the table, each voice layering vibrancy onto the project. Rachel thrived in the dynamic atmosphere, but remained acutely aware of maintaining focus on their core goals. However, as discussions ensued, Mark's critical voice surfaced again, this time questioning the feasibility of some of the proposed ideas. "We need to be practical here. Where's the structure in all this?" he challenged with crossed arms, casting a familiar shadow over the excitement in the room. Rachel met his gaze directly, her heart pounding. "Mark, I understand the importance of structure, but we also need to remain open to innovation. Let's capture your viewpoint on a practical execution while allowing room for creativity." Instead of retreating, Rachel embraced the tension, transforming it into a platform for dialogue. Over the course of the session, she deftly balanced the constructive criticisms and innovative suggestions, nurturing an atmosphere where her team felt safe to express their
Opinions. She facilitated discussions, allowing each idea its moment to shine, aiming to harmonize their perspectives into a cohesive vision. The next hour unfolded like a beautiful tapestry, vibrant threads intertwining into a collective narrative. Rachel began to see the flicker of her original vision merging with the innovative ideas offered by her team, resulting in something richer than she had imagined possible. With every constructive exchange, confidence welled up within her. She was no longer the solitary contributor, but rather the architect of a collaborative dream. By the time the session wrapped up, Rachel felt a sense of pride swelling in her chest. They had tackled Mark's concerns head-on, and rather than allowing doubt to derail their progress, they had constructed a strategy that felt both practical and dynamic. The room buzzed with excitement, a testament to the potential birthed from vulnerability and inclusivity. As she gathered her notes, the contrast between Rachel's initial fears and the vibrant momentum created now resonated within her. She had moved from a place of self-doubt to an empowered position of leadership, embracing the uniqueness of each voice at the table without sacrificing her authority or vision. That evening, she reflected quietly in her office. The weight of uncertainty was no longer suffocating, but rather a reminder of the growth she had experienced. Each challenge had carved a path to newfound strength, demonstrating to her that the essence of leadership lay in understanding her team's strengths rather than merely showcasing her own. Weeks passed, with the project growing in sophistication and creativity. The intern's suggestions had integrated seamlessly with the team's core strategy. Rachel's reputation blossomed within the office, and she was approached by the executive team to discuss her insights on fostering collaboration in high-stakes projects. During the presentation, the questions flowed, but Rachel confidently articulated her vision, proving her competence. The culmination of Rachel's journey unfolded at a company-wide presentation where she shared their project's success and the collaborative strategy that had propelled it forward. The room erupted into applause, and Rachel felt a mix of exhilaration and fulfillment wash over her. She had conquered the doubts that had once shadowed her, transforming them into a confident assertion of her capabilities as a leader. The respect she earned reflected not only the project's success, but also her journey, one that proved the immense value of collaboration and authentic leadership. Rachel's personal growth was now a beacon of inspiration for others. She had achieved recognition not just as an expert, but as a mentor willing to embrace collective ownership. In that moment of triumph, Rachel took a deep breath. She had climbed her mountain and realized that true leadership was not about the spotlight, but about uplifting others to shine alongside her. Her heart swelled with pride, the kind of profound satisfaction reserved for those who have weathered storms to emerge stronger and wiser. Before she stepped off the stage, she let her gaze sweep across the audience, grateful for the journey, eager for the paths ahead. And as her voice filled the space, she couldn't help but proclaim, "This success is ours together, a testament to what happens when we dare to believe in collaboration." The journey hadn't just transformed her project, it had revolutionized her identity in the very essence of courageous leadership. And now she stood on the precipice of new adventures, ready to embrace whatever challenge lay ahead. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so that you do not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire and uplift you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for the journey of personal transformation. Comment your reactions and theories about this inspiring conclusion. What did it mean for you and your path? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible story of overcoming doubts and embracing collaboration. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal growth stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.